Hi, this is Adam. This is another EyeOn North Carolina blog. We are here in Raleigh, North Carolina at the North Carolina Museum of Art, and we are here to see the Durham Bulls summer exhibition. And one of my favorite pieces is Alex Soth's center field and some of his other works. And I really particularly like this photo. As a sports fan, I understand kind of the plight of an outfielder. Baseball can be a really slow game, and they're standing out there on an island, and they're just waiting for the ball. So it's pretty challenging for the players not to be distracted. They're in the outfield, there's fans screaming. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this photo and other photos. I'm here with the curator, Linda, who's going to talk more about the whole exhibit. So we're here at center field number 1. Kind of explain, Linda, what the significance of this picture and what the artist was going for.
Sure. The works all along this wall are by Alex Soth, who's a photographer based out of Minneapolis. And I would say if you know his work, you almost immediately recognize his style. And he tends to do portraits, sometimes landscapes. But he often features people who look as if they're a little kind of on the outskirts or isolated. And he said when he went to the ballpark, he had no idea what he was going to photograph. And he was drawn to the outfield. And he was drawn to the outfield because he felt like it was the only part of the ballpark that felt a little lonely. That the players that are out there and then the fans who choose to sit out there are kind of loners and people that are by themselves. And I think when you look at the images of the single baseball player in the field, like this one and the other center field one, or at the individual fans, you get that sense of people who are kind of by themselves, even in the midst of this huge crowd of people.
And that's what he was trying to convey.
Yes, that was his intent behind this, definitely. And when people talk about his work, they talk about the relationship between the photographer and the subject. I think a lot of photography feels very voyeuristic, like the person doesn't know who they're being photographed.
Well, he's not directly looking at the audience here, so to speak, and he's probably focusing on the game.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the fans, you sense there's a relationship between the photographer and the person, that they knew they were being photographed even if they're not looking at the camera.
Right. So what's this next picture here? This is Alex, though. What is this? This is Crystal.
Okay. And so this is just a photograph of one of the fans in the stand, and I don't know anything about her other than her name. So I think you can kind of read into it however you choose to interpret it. But I would say she doesn't look particularly happy.
Yeah. Oh, maybe she doesn't look happy. It's a hot day out. Maybe she's really hot and
she's reached the end of her limit.
Yes.
Yes. And I love these ones of the two guys with the cameras in front of their face. I think it's just kind of funny that here he is photographing someone photographing.
And he's probably a fan. This guy. And he has a disposable camera, so it's very genuine. He's not a professional photographer. So kind of describe this picture here. It's a montage of all the fans in the stands, and what was he trying to convey here?
These were done by Hank Willis Thomas, and when he got to the stadium, it was for the last game of the season, so it was the final game, and he decided that his attempt was going to be to take a picture of every single person that was there for the last game. So he got a group of his friends, other photographers together, and they basically descended on the stadium with their iPhone cameras and tried to take portraits of as many people as possible. And one thing I love about these is I think they look kind of like baseball cards. They have that format, where the fan becomes almost the star, the baseball player.
And they even have workers, employees.
Yeah.
The whole collective of the stadium, not just fans sitting.
Exactly. Everyone who's kind of part of that experience and that community that happens at the ballpark. There are 9 photographers that are part of the show. She's a young photographer from Chicago. And these two gridded images, I think, are really unusual. I mean, if you saw these without seeing the rest of the show, you'd have no idea they were at the ballpark.
Right.
And you wouldn't really know what they are because she has such an interesting perspective. So she came to the ballpark and she did some photographs of players in the game, but then she started focusing on things like the cup holders and the drinks in the cup holders and creating this, I know it's more like a visual code or language of something you just wouldn't even pay attention to at the ballpark, and she turns it into, I think, kind of this beautiful abstract image. And it takes you a little while to realize what you're looking at.
Right.
You know? She makes you see the world from a different perspective.
Ordering food and drinks, and that's part of the experience at the ballpark.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I like this one. The food's on the ground, you know, they must have had a really good time eating that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some are full, some are empty.
Other grid over here is the outfield wall, and what you're seeing are the imprints left after the baseball hits the wall, so the kind of chalk shadow that's left behind after the ball bounces off the wall. And I think these are beautiful. They're kind of like these ghostly images.
They are. This one, you can really see the stitches. I think that's one of the few you can really discern that it is a dent from a baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then once you see the title and know what the show's about, you immediately recognize it. But I
Right.
think without that, you wouldn't be quite so sure what you're looking at. These black and white photographs are by a photographer from Los Angeles. His name is Hiroshi Watanabe. And I think, as you can see, he really focused in on kind of objects and details that are part of the game, and it takes you a while to figure out what you're looking at. I think, you know, the baseball you get because of the stitching is so distinctive. This, you're not quite sure what it is, and like you said, it's the scoreboard, it's
Right.
the 0. And then this one over here, you see this guy in this kind of dark enclosed space, and he's the scoreboard operator, and nobody sees him. He's
Right.
hidden behind the wall. So Hiroshi, I think, was very interested in kind of making you see the things you wouldn't ordinarily pay attention to or not even have the chance to see. Well, this one I love because I think it's one of the few kind of immediately recognizable images that you're at the ballpark or at a baseball game. And I love it that the baseball's kind of levitating in space.
Yeah.
But if you look at this whole wall of portraits, they're all people waiting for the gates to open. So they're standing outside the ballpark waiting to get in, and it's a huge crowd of people. But each portrait focuses on someone who seems kind of lost in their own world, that there's this huge mob of people around them, and they are kind of isolated in this little bubble of their own. And I think that's totally fascinating, that he kind of pulled those people out of the crowd in each case.
Yeah, you have the school children here, and I like this one. This woman's on her cell
On her
phone.
phone.
Nothing to do with the game.
If you didn't have the label saying outside the ballpark, you'd have no idea where these people are.
Right.
They could be anywhere. They could be at a shopping mall or a park or
Right.
anything. But
And that's what I really like about this collection. I mean, kind of a guessing game. If you didn't know this was a baseball exhibition, you know, it's really cool. I like that a lot.
yeah.
This one, it gives you a hint. The kid has a baseball glove.
Yeah,
And,
just like the other one with the boy with the baseball. Those two,
But this one's more subtle.
Mhm.
You know, if you're just glancing by, you know.
you might not notice it.
Right.
Are by Frank Hunter, and he decided that he was going to focus on something probably you don't even pay attention to, so you're looking out at the game and not up at the sky, and he loved the quality of light that happens during a baseball game. So you're basically there at twilight, so you're at this kind of amazing transition between light and dark, which can lead to these really dramatic skyscapes. So that's what he wanted to capture, is kind of the drama of the sky over the stadium and that changing light. And I think they're just really beautiful images. Sopsy, and I love them. I think they're just very nostalgic. So she's using basically an antiquated photographic process. So she's making tintypes, which were, you know, a 19th century form of photography where you basically expose the negative directly onto a metal plate or a glass plate, and they look as if they're from another era, but they're from last summer. So I just love that kind of, there's a lot of nostalgia about baseball anyways. Like some of the other photographers, she was very interested in the community of people at the ballpark. So she did a whole series of these portraits with just a white backdrop. So again, you wouldn't know where you were unless you were told that these were all taken at the ballpark. And like Hank and Alex, so she's photographing the workers, the fans, everyone who's there. Okay. So these are by Elizabeth Matheson, and I think, this image and the one next to it, you would have no idea where you were. It's that idea, again, of kind of how you crop something and close in on it, and then your perspective from it, like the one of the concessions where you're looking down at the cups, so kind of the same thing here with the pretzels. But then you see the one in the back of the baseball player with the balls in his pockets, and you know where you are. But it's this idea, like several of the other photographers, of kind of closing in on something, and I think, making you look at things you wouldn't ordinarily notice, and then just, it gives you a different feeling. This image I love. To me, it just looks like, vacation.
Right.
Or what. And then the last ones, I think, are the most unusual, and then you would really have no idea of what you're looking at.
But I'm a sports fan, so I know what these mean.
So see,
yes.
Like most people look at these, they're by Jeff Whetstone, and they have no idea what they're looking at, but you know.
Yes, the K represents strikeout. So that's, someone has their score sheet, they're marking, maybe it's a fan marking the score sheet, or maybe it's the manager, so.
Whetstone, the photographer, his dad, when he was growing up, his dad would listen to the baseball game on the radio and keep score just like this. So there's a book associated with this whole exhibition, and one of the writers for the book, Adam Sobsey, went to all the games last summer, and these are his scorecards. So Jeff photographed the scorecards and then kind of blew them up.
Linda, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
touring us around this exhibit. I greatly appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And I really enjoyed this exhibit, being a baseball fan. Really appreciated the photography and the artwork. And this is another EyeOn North Carolina blog. We're here in Raleigh at the North Carolina Museum of Art, and hope to see y'all soon.